All right, what's up, everybody? This is Rob Schou here with Chesapeake Bay Living. What I'm going to be talking to you about is making crab dip. Now, I got a whole video of how I make it, and I want to go over that recipe with you, of course, but I also want to talk a little bit about the different types of crab meat and a few other things before we get started. Now, number one, the best way to get crab meat anytime for crab dip is to pick it yourself. I cannot stress enough to support your local waterman. Go out, buy some crabs straight off the boat or from one of the roadside crab stands and get your crabs that way and get good at picking. I actually have a video that I have linked up there, the 3 methods that I use to pick crabs, and they can really help speed up your technique if you're looking to pick for crab dip or crab cakes or something like that. Now, you can also go to the store, and I highly recommend places like Chesapeake's Bounty, which is a local farmer's market kind of thing. And I can also say that another great place to find crab meat, if you're not into picking it, is going to local seafood markets that have fresh Chesapeake Bay blue crab meat. So you want the fresh stuff, not the pasteurized stuff. And I'll get into that in a second why. But you want to make sure it's fresh. And you can get the jumbo lump or the back fin or whatever you want to get, but make sure it is blue crab meat that is fresh. Now, a lot of the times in this time of year, which is about October right now, you can get some really good deals on crab meat because the crabs are more plentiful and the picking houses are really in full swing in getting that crab meat out, and the demand is a little bit lower than other times during the year. So I would check right now at those seafood markets to see what kind of deals you could get. But also, you may see other crab meat in other places that's fresh crab meat that could be from either other states or even other countries too. So be an educated consumer, read about where it's from, and make those decisions based on that. Now, another form of crab meat that you probably see out there a lot, especially in the wintertime, is going to be pasteurized crab meat. It's one of those things where it really depends on the product you put in with the product you get out. So pasteurization of crab meat is basically they heat it up for about 2 hours, up to I think it's about 83 degrees Celsius, and then they cool it down in an ice bath for 2 hours. And that kills a lot of the bacteria that's present in crab meat if it sits too long. So it's just a way of making it more shelf stable for the end consumer. All right, so let's get into the video today. So I got these crabs from a local waterman down here in Southern Maryland, and we got them for a party, and we had about 3 dozen left over. So I decided I would pick them and put them into crab dip and save a little for other stuff too. And also down in the description, you can go get my recipe that's right there, and you can make the same exact crab dip. And as always, if you have something you want to say, if you have something you would tweak in my recipe, or just some comments about how I'm doing things, drop that comment below. I love having conversations. I love learning from people. So make sure you go ahead and do that. All right, let's go ahead and get started with this crab dip recipe. All right, so like I said, the very first thing that I'm doing is I'm going to pick these crabs. So this method right here, I call it the tray method, or someone else coined it the tray method. But basically, you're picking that crab by cutting it in half and getting all that meat out. Now, it still does take a little while. Of course, this is sped up a lot. But for the most part, I feel like it's a pretty efficient way to pick these crabs. You still get a good chunk of back fin. It's not the whole back fin, but you still get a whole good chunk of meat there. And it's just a really nice finished product with very little shells. I found when I was picking it other ways, I got tons of shells in my crab meat, and it just wasn't a pleasant experience for a lot of people when they're eating crab dip and having to spit out shells every once in a while there. So this is by far my favorite way to pick crabs. And like I said before, if you want, you can see my crab picking methods right up there. I'm putting them at the top of the video right now for you to see. So go ahead and click on that, or wait for a little bit and go on my channel page, and it will actually be on my page itself where you can see the different ways that I like to pick crabs. Now we're at the end there, and we picked all that crab meat. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I do, the first thing is I add the juice of 1 lemon. And then after that, I put in my softened cream cheese. You got to make sure it's softened because it makes it so much easier to mix it up. I normally leave it out on the counter for about an hour, maybe 2 hours, and it really softens it up and makes it easy to use. The next thing that I'm going to do after I add this cream cheese in is I'm going to add my cheese. And you're going to see I don't use the normal cheddar. I actually use Walmart brand Fiesta Blend cheddar. And there's other brands of Fiesta Blend cheddar, but something like that, I just feel like gives it a good taste, and I really like it. So I'm going to take a half a cup of Fiesta Blend cheddar and put it right in there. So right now we got the lemon juice, Fiesta Blend cheddar, and the cream cheese. And now in goes the mayonnaise. I'm using Hellmann's mayonnaise. After the Hellmann's mayonnaise. All right, so next you're going to put in the Worchestshire sauce, if that's how you say it. I'm not sure. Now, you don't want to overdo this. It can get a really strong taste if you do too much. I'm doing 2 teaspoons right here, and even that's a little bit too much. I'd say you can see I kind of underfill it a little bit because if it gets too strong, it's just too much. And then this is a tablespoon of Old Bay. You know, I kind of vary it depending on, you know, how spicy or how salty I kind of want it. I didn't put all of the Old Bay in this time because I wanted a little less salty. And then sometimes I'll add the Old Bay on top afterwards. And the next thing to do is you got to fold this all together. Before you put that crab meat in, you got to fold it all together, because if you put the crab meat in first, it's going to break all up and you're not going to get those nice chunks of crab meat when you go ahead and dip stuff in. So you're going to fold it all together just like this and just keep working it until it's one, you know, kind of solid color of Old Bay and all that kind of stuff mixed up. Make sure it's all good and mixed up. And it can take a little while to do it, but you want it nice and mixed up instead of just kind of clumpy together. The cream cheese never really kind of, you know, smooths out. I always thought that you had to get it smooth. You don't have to get it smooth, just mixed up enough that it is, you know, all the flavors are mixed together. All right, so now what we're going to do, we got it all mixed up and we're going to add in our crab meat. So there's my fresh picked crab meat that I have, dumping it in there. Sorry for blocking the camera on you there. Dumping it in, and then I'm going to gently fold it. You don't want to be too rough with this because then it's going to break up that lump and you're not going to get the good big pieces of crab meat when you eat it. So you can see I'm just kind of folding it in there, trying my best not to really mash up the crab meat. So going to give it a fold until it's completely kind of mixed up. Everything is all kind of joined together and ready to go. And after I get it all mixed up right there, I'm going to go ahead and get my Pyrex out. Sometimes I use a pie dish. This time I'm using my 9x9 square dish here. Just going to put it out. I don't grease it at all. I just put it right in and then flatten it out. So you want to get it all in there. Make sure you scrape that bowl, scrape all the edges, get every little bit out, because we all know crab meat's expensive, so don't want to waste anything. So get it all out, and then the most important thing for me is making sure it's nice and flat all to the edges, because it will cook a lot better. And then while you're doing this, and before, what you should have done is had that oven up to 350, and I forgot to mention that before, but you want to get the oven up to 350 so you can put it in, and I leave it in for about 30 minutes. And what I'm looking for when I start baking it is when these little edges start to bubble up. That is the sign that it's looking good. And then after they start to boil, I turn on the broiler until it gets a nice brown crust, and you can put Parmesan or mozzarella cheese on top of there as well. I normally choose not to, but that is that finished product there. So that's how I make crab dip. You know, one of the things I really love about crab dip, especially if it doesn't have sour cream in it, it freezes really well. So this time of year when crab prices are a little bit lower, I love getting a few bushels from my local waterman, and I go ahead and I pick them, I make them into crab dip, I make them into crab cakes first, and then I freeze it that way, because then it's so much easier during the winter time when I want that taste of summer again to just pull those crab cakes out or pull that crab dip out, warm it up, and it's already done and waiting for me right there. All right, so hopefully this information was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions about my recipe or any questions about Chesapeake Bay living. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think about this recipe. Is there anything I need to change as well? And also make sure you click the subscribe button, click the little bell so you're notified every single time we put out new content about the Chesapeake Bay living. Hope to see you on the next video.